The Earth is rumbling again. And if it's not where you are right now, it will be someday, because earthquakes happen all over our planet. Every year, there are tens of thousands of earthquakes that shake the ground from beneath our feet. Some are so small we don't even notice them, while others can level entire cities in an instant. For a long time, scientists believed that these seismic rumblings were entirely random, but they are beginning to find connections between earthquakes and some of Earth's most explosive supervolcanoes. If this turns out to be a global pattern, it could mean we have severely underestimated how dangerous these volcanoes are. Now let's get into this. To understand the connection between supervolcanoes and earthquakes, we need to know what supervolcanoes are to begin with. They're just giant volcanoes capable of producing extremely large eruptions. But what qualifies as extremely large? Well, anything's a big deal when you're talking about explosions, but the official definition refers to a volume of ash, rock, and gas that blasts out of the volcano. It has to be at least 1,000 cubic kilometers. To put that into perspective, the largest eruption in recent history was that of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines in 1991. Its explosion blasted about 5 cubic kilometers of material into the air, so a supervolcanic eruption is at least 200 times bigger than that. And those are relatively small potatoes compared to the biggest eruptions in history. The massive Toba super-eruption in Indonesia around 74,000 years ago blasted more than 2,800 cubic kilometers of material into the air. That's over 30 times the volume of Mount St. Helens, one of the most active volcanoes in the United States. Most of the time when we think of volcanoes, we imagine a tall, conical mountain with lava oozing down its slopes. But that's called a lava dome eruption. Supervolcanoes typically erupt in a different way. Instead of building up a cone, the land surrounding the volcano collapses to form a giant caldera, which is basically a large basin or depression. These calderas can be dozens of kilometers wide. We're talking Yellowstone National Park size. And while they're mostly filled with lava during lava dome eruptions, they occasionally fill with water, forming what's known as a maar. Maars are also formed by explosive volcanic activity. In fact, some of the world's largest lakes are actually maars. Lake Toba in Indonesia, which formed from the aforementioned supereruption, is the world's deepest lake. And Crater Lake in Oregon is the deepest lake in the United States. Yellowstone National Park is home to the largest supervolcano in the contiguous United States. It's also been home to 3 supereruptions in the past, 2 of which occurred hundreds of thousands of years before humans evolved. Although Yellowstone is considered an active supervolcano, scientists don't expect an eruption anytime soon. There have been smaller eruptions within the park's borders in recent history. For example, the smaller magma chamber associated with Yellowstone's middle or magma up-east rift has been particularly active. Between 1985 and 1986, there were more than 3,000 earthquakes in the region, indicating rising magma. However, researchers don't believe that Yellowstone is due for a supereruption. Its magma chambers are recharging, but that process takes thousands of years, and scientists estimate that the park has many millennia to go before its next big explosion. Yellowstone is also not the only place where magma is rising. In January 2023, swarms of earthquakes shook the Broadlands and Hanmer Springs regions of New Zealand's South Island. Scientists monitored more than 100 earthquakes in the area, which was unusual but not unheard of. New Zealand sits on the edge of the Pacific Ring of Fire, so earthquakes are not uncommon. But in this case, the quakes were clustered together in a strange new hotspot. Scientists believe that magma is pushing its way toward the surface, possibly creating a new volcano. Residents of the region were advised to prepare for a possible eruption. Authorities set the threat level to level 2, indicating that while there were signs that something might happen, there was no immediate danger. Eventually, the earthquake swarm ended without an eruption, but scientists say that the magma is still there and will likely make its presence felt again. So far, no new volcanic activity has been detected. But if it did erupt, would the resulting earthquake be reason for concern? Well, it depends. An eruption isn't necessarily cause for alarm, nor are earthquakes always cause for alarm. For example, in November 2022, the U.S. Geological Survey reported a magnitude 5.8 earthquake near Mammoth Lakes, California. This was felt as far away as Las Vegas, Nevada, Los Angeles, California, and even Utah. While that sounds scary, the area is used to earthquakes, and there were no injuries or damage reports. On the other hand, the initial earthquake that struck Turkey in February 2023 had a magnitude of 7.8, and it caused catastrophic damage to buildings and infrastructure, killing tens of thousands of people in Turkey and neighboring Syria. It's important to remember that the strength of an earthquake is measured on a logarithmic scale called the Richter scale. Each whole number increase represents a tenfold increase in amplitude. So a magnitude 7.8 earthquake is 10 times stronger than a magnitude 6.8 earthquake and 100 times stronger than a magnitude 5.8 earthquake. Now, why am I telling you this? Because earthquakes caused by volcanic activity can vary widely in strength. Sometimes they're too weak to even be detected. Other times they can cause major damage and loss of life. The good news is that earthquakes caused by volcanic activity are usually pretty easy to detect. Recording the strength of these events helps scientists better understand how volcanoes work. In September 2022, scientists in Japan recorded a magnitude 4.6 earthquake near the country's southern island of Kuchinuerabujima. The quake was caused by magma movement under the sea, and luckily, there was no damage to buildings or structures. There was no tsunami and nobody was hurt. But why does volcanic activity cause earthquakes in the first place? Magma is responsible for the rumblings beneath our feet. As it moves through the Earth's crust, it causes the rocks around it to fracture. All that fracturing creates stress. When the stress is released, the rocks suddenly shift, causing an earthquake. And because magma is constantly shifting, the stress is never fully released, meaning that the rocks are always ready to rumble. It's kind of like when you're sitting in a chair and you keep adjusting your position. Every time you shift, your chair legs scrape across the floor and you hear a little scraping noise. But instead of a chair leg, it's magma, and instead of a little scraping noise, it's an earthquake. Not all volcanoes produce earthquakes, but the ones that do tend to be supervolcanoes. Research suggests that there may be a correlation between supervolcanoes and earthquakes. That means that earthquakes may be one of the warning signs that a supervolcanic eruption is imminent. Right now, scientists are still looking for patterns, so we don't yet know which volcanoes are most likely to produce damaging earthquakes or how strong those earthquakes will be. But as research continues, we may learn that many more volcanoes are earthquake factories. In 2023, scientists are working to develop early warning systems that will alert residents in the event of a supervolcanic eruption. Early warnings could help reduce the loss of life and economic damage associated with these rare but devastating events. It's unclear how useful these early warning systems will be for earthquake swarms. Hopefully, scientists will be able to develop technology that can predict earthquakes in the future. If we can figure out exactly what's happening deep underground, we can better forecast earthquakes. While researchers continue their work, it's best to stay vigilant and follow safety guidelines in earthquake-prone areas. Earthquakes can happen anywhere and any time, but they're especially common in certain places. The vast majority of earthquakes occur along the edges of Earth's tectonic plates. Most of the major tectonic plate boundaries are located in the Pacific Ocean, leading scientists to refer to this region as the Pacific Ring of Fire. Supervolcanoes are also found all over the globe, including in the United States, Japan, Indonesia, Italy, and New Zealand. But not all supervolcanoes cause earthquakes, and if they do, the earthquakes aren't always strong enough to do significant damage. In 2024, scientists will continue searching for patterns to better understand the relationship between supervolcanoes and earthquakes. Research will focus on figuring out which supervolcanoes are most likely to cause earthquakes, how strong those earthquakes will be, and how much warning we'll have before they happen. In the meantime, residents in areas surrounding supervolcanoes should continue to stay vigilant and prepared for potential earthquakes. With a little luck, scientists will be able to come up with better ways to predict these rumblings in the future.